Thank you all very much. Thank you for coming. Welcome to this session. If you turned up like 10 minutes ago, saw the end of the last talk and were a bit confused about what's going on, poor Will had a few technical issues, had to present up there. I am here in physical form in front of you, so I'm just going to walk around because you can actually see me, unlike him, just to show off a bit. So in this session, I'm going to be talking about engaging with the community. We've heard the word community used a lot in Unity marketing, in the keynote speech. So what do I mean by that? Well, in this session, I'm going to be talking about interacting with other developers, other game makers outside your team, outside your company, and some of the benefits that you can get from doing that. At the bottom line, how you can make money from doing that as well. So, start off by telling you a little bit about myself. I'm a developer. I've held a number of different roles in my professional career. At the moment, I'm working with a small team called Outlandish Games. There's 4 of us, and I might get a chance to tell you a bit more about that later. I've been using Unity since just before version 4 came out, so about 2012, I think that was. And I've also done various other things. So I've written some technical books, and I've submitted blog articles to various online sites as well. I lecture in game design at a local university, and I've published some assets on the Asset Store as well. I've put the word prolific Unity answers user there. I'm something like the 7th most person that spends the most time on Unity answers. I don't know if that's something to be proud of or not, but I'll tell you about that later as well. And I run a local user group in Norfolk in the east of England, where I'm from, and I run a gaming festival there as well. So in this talk, I'm going to be talking about my personal experiences doing all these things, but hopefully will give you some inspiration that you can take away as well, whether you are a solo developer, whether you're in a small indie team, or whether you're in a large team, something that you can get from involving yourselves in the communities in which you operate. So, Unity has 1.5 million active users. We found that out yesterday. That's a whole lot of people using Unity out there. And so it doesn't just have one community of all those 1.5 million people. There are lots of different communities, and they interact with each other in different ways, and they can give you different opportunities as well. So I'm going to start by talking about online communities. And Unity curates 2 different online communities, really. There's Unity Answers, and there's Unity Forums. Just as a quick show of hands, raise your hand if you've been to either Unity Answers or Unity Forums in the last month, let's say. Okay, pretty much everyone there. Okay, that's really good. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time telling you about them. You know what they're like. Sister sites, Unity Answers for quick, specific technical questions. Unity Forums tend to be for more discussion-based, opinion, design questions, things like that. So what are the benefits of engaging yourselves in this community? Why did you all go there sometime in the last month? Did you get there from a Google search? Did you go and search because you had a problem and you got stuck? A couple of nods heads. I'm going to assume that some of you, that was the reason why you went there. So the obvious reason why you'd want to engage yourself in one of these sites is to solve a problem. So whatever stage of development you're at, you've got a feature that you've got a weird bug, or you can't get past this thing, or you're trying to work out how to implement a certain feature. So you go to Unity Answers or Unity Forums, and because Unity has this massive user base, 1.5 or 1.499999 million other people using it, there's a really good chance someone else has already had that problem. There's a pretty good chance someone else has already solved that problem. So you can go there and get the solution to your problem straight away. Brilliant. If no one has answered that problem before, you can obviously start a new thread, ask a new question. And what you often find is actually even in the act of asking a question, you might kind of help yourself come across the answer. I often think there should be a button they're like a time lock button. So you write your question out and go, I'm trying to blit to a render texture, and it always comes up black. And if you write a good question, and then there's like a 10-minute delay, and in that 10 minutes, the chances of you working out, I'm so dumb, I didn't right to the depth buffer, or whatever it is. So going there, looking up answers to questions, asking a question, that's a great way of solving problems. Now, for these communities to work, though, they obviously don't just need someone to go and ask questions, they need people to answer questions as well. And there are Unity staff, obviously active in both the forums and answers, but a lot of the time the questions depend on other developers, other members of the community answering solvers. So who in the last month has been to Unity Answers or Unity Forums and either answered someone else's question or maybe took part in a discussion to help someone else on an issue? Okay, we have some. A lot less people than last time, though. So, and I guess the question is, well, why would you want to do that? I mean, we talk about this community like we're a big, happy family, but ultimately we are also competitors. I'm making games, you're making games. There's a limited marketplace for games out there. And I have my own bugs to solve. I have a list of bugs like, pages and pages long. Why would I waste time solving other people's problems rather than my own? And I'm going to give you 3 or 4 reasons why you might want to do that. The first one is to improve your own skills. So explaining solutions to problems to other people helps you get a better understanding of it yourself. And there's loads of research that supports this. Children who have younger siblings tend to do better in academic tests. And the reason why they think is because as growing up, they have explained to their younger brothers and sisters things that they have learned throughout the day, every day. It's part of their life. And they then have a better organization of those thoughts themselves. So particularly if you are trying to learn a new system yourself, when Unity introduces UI or a new feature or something like that, if you have just learnt something in Unity and you explain it to someone else, you're actually embedding that knowledge yourself much better. That's the first reason you want to do it. The second reason you want to do it is because these sites are kind of your own first line of tech support. In the future, you may not need help now, but in the future, you might go to these sites and want help on something. So if you invest in that community today by helping other people, you're kind of investing in your own future tech support. It's kind of a pay-it-forward type system. And the other thing you're doing is you're showing off your knowledge. You're proving what you know. And a new feature, again, in the keynote, if we talk about Unity Connect, so this is a new service that's going to put people who want to solve problems in contact with contractors, basically talent, who have got the ability to solve those problems. And when you're pitching for work, if you can demonstrate that you have solved other hard problems in the past on a public profile, like on the forums or on Answers, or on maybe the Stack Exchange, game dev site, something like that, you're kind of building up this public profile for yourself that's going to help you win work in the future as well. Because when you hire a contractor, you don't just want someone who's going to be able to do the code, you want someone who's going to be able to explain that code, do it well, and hand over that work to you as well. And these systems are kind of gamified as well, so you kind of, you'll see the number of points awarded for a good answer, and you can kind of work up a reputation as well. Right there. Another benefit you get of going through these kind of sites is, I've called this collective hindsight, and I don't know if that will translate very well into other languages, but what I mean by that is normally you learn from your own mistakes, yeah? If you're part of a community, you can learn from other people's mistakes without ever having to make the mistake yourself, though. So you can kind of go there, and if you follow a thread of someone trying to solve a hard problem, and it's a bit like some of the talks we've seen here today, the post-mortem talks, where people have said, this was really hard, we tried this solution, that didn't work, we ditched it. We tried this, that didn't work, so we tried something else, and then we got the solution. If you're engaging in the community, you can kind of see the problem, skip out all that stuff in the middle, and just take the solution that someone else has solved for you. So you're benefiting from what other members of the community have solved before you. And you can also do market research. Now, this is sort of slightly more complicated one to explain, so perhaps I'll explain it. On the right, that screenshot there, if you spend a lot of time in the same community, you tend to see the same questions coming up over and over. And a lot of the time, these are influenced by popular games at the time. So when Monument Valley came out, for example, there were loads of questions on the forums about how do you recreate a look like Monument Valley in your game? How do you get that flat shaded, beautiful isometric style? Or how do you do the physics? At the moment, with No Man's Sky, it's getting a lot of interest in procedurally generated massive worlds, and lots of people are asking questions on that. And there's always people asking questions about Minecraft and how do I generate voxel terrain and things like that. And if you engage in the communities a lot, you'll see these themes of these questions come up, and there's obviously demand amongst developers to know how to do these things. And if you're a smart business person and you think, well, hang on, there's a lot of demand amongst 1.5 million developers out there to know how to do this thing, what I should do is make a product that meets that demand. So, and that product can take lots of forms. It could be an asset on the asset store. It could be a video tutorial series on YouTube, or it could be an article on Patreon. There's lots of different ways to monetize a solution to a problem that lots of people are facing in a community. So I noticed that lots of people were asking about how to create a pencil shader, or like a hand-drawn shader. I don't quite know what started this trend. Akami used this style a couple of years ago, but I don't know, maybe there's a recent game that's used it too. So lots of people were asking, how do I create this look of a hand-drawn sort of image? So I made a shader pack for it. And this wasn't a lot of work. I did this over the weekends, I don't know, maybe 4 weekends or something like that. Came up with a shader pack which met the needs that I'd identified from people asking in the forum, and put it up on the asset store. It was quite a niche product. I shouldn't expect any of you have heard of it, which doesn't really matter. But I thought I'll put it up there, charge $25 for it, and we'll see what happens. And someone used it in a game. Is that video going to play or not? Maybe not. That's okay. I think it was about to kick in there as well. And then in January this year, so I grossed $2,000 from it in January this year. It's not enough to retire on, but this was a product that took me a couple of weekends' work. And I don't have to do anything else to market it, really. I know that people wanted it because I saw that people were asking how to do it in the forums. It's very little effort to then go and say, hey, actually, I have solved your problem. There's this asset now available. If you want it, go and buy it. And that kind of just rolls into my PayPal account each month. So that's kind of really great way of solving a problem. So that's another thing you can get from participating in online communities, is working out what demand is out there amongst other developers. I've been talking about Unity answers and Unity forums a lot, but obviously there's a load of other online communities as well. If you have a blog, you can get market research from what sort of pages people are looking at on your blog, what search terms are driving people there as well. So at the moment, I'm getting a lot of views on using motion capture in characters, custom terrain shader there is getting quite a lot of views, procedural terrain, splat mapping. These are kind of issues which I'm going to go away now and think, well, actually, is there demand out there that I can make an asset and get some money quite quickly out that? Because I've already done my research. I know people are interested in this information. So that's all about online communities. Then we've also got, obviously, in-person communities, more traditional engagements with people. And I've put user groups there. So I run this user group. This is the Norfolk Game Developers group. We meet twice a month. We started very humbly. I think our very first meeting about 4 years ago, I think maybe 6 people came, maybe 8 people. We met in an Indian restaurant, and I think only one of them had ever published a game. So we had very, very humble beginnings. Norfolk is not a kind of hotspot of game development currently on the UK map, but we're trying to kind of change that. So we just met together. We now have about 300 members. We've got staff and students at the local university. We've one of the games in the Made with Unity exhibit here is by one of our members, which is fantastic. So we meet together twice a month, and our first meetup of each month, we do a show and tell. So members come along and they show whatever they're working at, and they get feedback from the group. And this is really nice, especially if you work as a solo developer or if you work in a very small team. You obviously don't have a testing department on hand. So to get a regular group of people in a user group playing your game at different stages of development, don't wait until you're nearly at release and only then think about, well, actually, let's get some testing and some feedback involved. If you go along to a user group, you can be showing it right the way through the development and get feedback very early on in your design decision processes. Actually, this feature doesn't work. Kill it now. Don't let it go on too far. So that's kind of one thing. I wouldn't say this replaces the need to do that proper user testing, obviously, with your target audience. For one thing, other developers tend to pick up a different sort of set of features than end users do, but it's really valuable to have that kind of feedback as you go. And the other meetup we do each month, the second one, we do more of a social in a pub, basically. And we meet up and we chat about games. People can still show their games if they want, but they don't have to. They can just chat about anything they want. And this is a different type of need which we're addressing in this one. If you work as a solo developer, or maybe you work remotely as part of a team, you're working on your own for a long period of time, you're probably staring at a computer for a large number of hours of the day, and you're not getting much social interaction with peers and things like that. And that's really bad for your mental well-being, if I'm totally honest, especially if you are in crunch period, you're working hours and hours. So one of the benefits we get from engaging with each other, with other people that share the same views as yourself, and that's what a community is after all, is just that release to have that interaction with other people. You can chat about things. Obviously, you should have hobbies outside of game development. Maybe you've got family and friends and other things as well. But sometimes to meet up socially with a group of people with a common interest as you can do wonders for your well-being. It's good for you. So that's the other kind of engagement we have in our user group. Maybe you're not a solo developer or a small team. Maybe you're a large team. Maybe you've got commercial offices and development space. So in that case, one of the benefits you can offer to a user group is actually the use of your studio. Let's say in the evening time, if your studio normally lies empty, maybe you could offer a local user group to come and hold their meetings there. And it's not a great outlay on, it's not a great expense for you to incur that, but it can build a lot of goodwill with you in the local development community. And then those developers can go on to act as evangelists for your company, and they will likely be very loyal. Developers, I think, oftentimes, if you've given your resources to help them, will go and pay that favor back in the future. So if you are running a big studio and you have a local user group, I do encourage you to offer that service to them. Beyond regular user group meetings, you obviously get also one-off events. And maybe some of you already go to GDC or South by Southwest or E3, these big kind of game development events that happen globally or locally. But I'd also encourage you to get yourself engaged in events that happen on a more local basis. Maybe they're not even totally game focused. We ran an event in Norwich, the Norwich Game Expo, and we simply wrote to people and said, look, we're putting on this event. We can't offer much because we don't have a huge budget, but maybe you'd come and offer a talk, or maybe you'd come and exhibit. And we got some amazing speakers. We got Imre Yele from Bossa, Manveer Air from BioWare came to speak, and we had people like Cara Ellison, who writes for Eurogame, and lots of journalists. David Housden, who was the composer for Thomas Was Alone. You'd be amazed the generosity of people in the game industry, really, who would come and support these kind of events. And we also had filmmakers and script writers and lots of other people who can enrich your kind of game experience. I think that's the other thing, is if you only ever go to game events, you become quite insular and focused, and you really need to take inspiration from other communities outside of just the game development community, particularly from other artistic communities, so film and television and traditional art methods as well. So we ran this festival. We've been running it for 3 years now. This year, I think we had about 30,000 people over the course of a week came to this festival. So that's been a great success for us. Obviously, speaking at a festival gives you a lot of exposure for yourself, for your company, for your game. And whatever stage of the process you might be at, whether you're currently trying to get crowdfunding support, whether you're trying to get greenlit, whether you're trying to look for publishers, or whether you've got a store game available and you're just trying to drive sales, it's always good to expose yourself. This was some of the exposure we got, even for a small local event. We had national media and local media as well. And it can lead to other contracts. So this was a Norfolk, where I'm from. Like I said, not known as a big game community, but one of the things it is famous for is this is the birth county of Lord Nelson, a British kind of sea admiral. And one of our local historical heritage groups wanted to commission a game that would engage young people in knowing about Nelson. So they gave us a contract to produce this game, use some assets from the asset store. So that's, I think it's called Sea Queen, the asset there of the ship, with a bit of texturing change and things like that, and created a game very quickly where you had to gather letters that Nelson had written to his wife and loved ones and things like that. So it played a bit like Slender, but kind of on Nelson's ship, I suppose. And like I say, I now lecture as well. I'm running low on time. We're trying to catch up. So I'm going to talk about conferences last of all. Big conferences like this one. I hope I don't need to sell you the benefits of appearing at a big conference like this. I hope you've enjoyed your time yesterday and today and ongoing to tomorrow as well. I'd just say that for next year, though, maybe you'd want to consider getting engaged more than simply as a attendee. Maybe you'd want to put forward a session yourself. There's no, I don't think there's any confidentiality in knowing that speakers get conference passes provided. So for me personally, I've had my conference ticket provided and my asset source sales have paid for my plane and my B&B here. So I've had like a free holiday through engagement with Unity. Maybe that should be the strap line of this talk. So I've had a free holiday in Amsterdam through engagement with the community. You should too. And it also gives you this platform to kind of tell people about whatever you're working on, your games at the moment, which I'm very quickly going to do now. So I actually met the development team who I'm working with at the moment through a Facebook group. This is another kind of community that's out there, another different kind of engagement. We're working on a 2D procedurally generated side scroller at the moment called Gnome. We're still quite early days at the moment, so I haven't got much content to show you, but I hope to be back probably here next year, where we'll have a lot more to show about it. So I'll show you a little bit of promo shots of it just there. It takes place on a kind of a alien planet. You're a nomadic character, and you start off exposed on the surface of this planet to different kind of environmental conditions, different hazards. You then descend to the surface of the planet and have to find out what's going on the planet. I will quickly summarize then. So there's lots of communities out there. There's 1.5 million Unity developers out there, and there are other people making games in other platforms that you can also, other engines, sorry, that you can also benefit from engaging with. Through engaging in different communities, you can solve your own technical problems. That's kind of a given. You can also improve your own skills by explaining problems to other people. And in doing that, you can demonstrate your skills so that you make yourself more saleable as a contract work for hire, particularly using things like Unity Connect system that's coming in. You can benefit from other people's mistakes as well without having to make the mistakes yourself. You can conduct market research. What is it that other developers are trying to do? Is it a skill that you have? And can you provide an asset that would let them do that? Or can you provide training that would teach them how to do that? Use the communities that are out there as a way of getting an insight into what people want, because the data's all sitting there ready for you to use. You can use it to form teams, to find work, and drive more sales, more exposure for your brand and your game. There's a social side, particularly to in-person meetups, that I would encourage you to do. And there's other benefits that you can have as well, like being here in beautiful Amsterdam and talking at the conference. That is it from me.